Okay, so thanks so much. And I'm going to turn it over to Beatrice Bloom, who is going to be the moderator, and she'll be working with Sherry. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Lynn, for bringing us together. So rev up your taste buds as we zoom into pre-Hanukkah fun together with Sherry. She will be using oil and the secret ingredient, a love of cooking, to make this year's latkes and other latke-like alternative recipes. Community, food, and personal warmth are ways forward and especially welcome at this time when we hope for miracles and may need a little extra nurturing. Sherry, like many of us, loves to cook for her family. She finds feeding others rewarding, whether it is for her family, friends, or her community. That is one reason the late Rabbi Adam Feldman and Sherry figured out how she and some other loving friends could use TJC kitchens to cook up a storm, soups and hors d'oeuvres for her son Michael's bar mitzvah oneg back in 2013. It is also why she loves cooking for the end of the year TJC garden dinner led by Wilma Solomon, or even volunteering with TJC Kiddush crew that we all miss, led by Suzanne Esterman. In fact, the curry is in one of the latke recipes to be made was used in the Stone Soup Sukkot and Mitzvah Day events under Alexandra Bar Cohen's direction. This love isn't something new. When Sherry was dating her husband-to-be Gerard at age 20, she was impressed that he owned Julia Child's Joy of French Cooking, Volume 1 and Volume 2, and actually valued cooking together. She told him about the first time she cooked for her family. She was in 3rd grade and had made sloppy joes, tomato and ground beef kind, in her elementary school classroom. And then she couldn't wait to cook it up at home to show her parents, Fred Edelman and the late Linda Gunther Edelman. She bakes sourdough during this pandemic and shares an occasional loaf with Dad and Mamda, Fran Zeitler. Sherry and Gerard's love for food is deeply connected to their upbringing. One needn't decide if the love of cooking derives from nurture versus nature when eating or talking about how to prepare food or showing others how to prepare a dish. Loving to do something speaks to our spirits, knowing our paths to action. Finally, food can be credited with giving the Edelman and Meyer's extended family something fun to enjoy, as one side hailed from New York and New Jersey, while the other brought with them tastes from France, Germany, and Argentina. And as Lynn was mentioning, Sherry's nephew, Alex, he's the new young executive chef at the Perch at the Peacock Inn, and can tell you a family food tale or two. If you ever go there, please mention that you're part of the TJC family and know his aunt, Sherry. Well, grab your favorite wine or tea, cook along, or watch as you join Cooking with Sherry on Zoom for latkes and beyond. She will cover the traditional recipe, but will expand by sharing alternative fried pancake-like recipes like jalapeno corn fritters and mild sweet potato curry latkes. Since Hanukkah is 8 nights, there is room for experimentation. If asked what her favorite thing about food is, Sherry would say that it brings everyone together and nurtures our bodies as well as our spirits. This event seems the perfect way to prepare for a happy Hanukkah. Welcome, Sherry.
Thank you, Beatrice. You did an excellent job. Thank you so much. And thanks, Lynn, for coordinating everything. So I just wanted to add on to that one of the people that helped me at the bar mitzvah in the back kitchen the week before is on the Zoom. A shout out to Norma. I still remember how fun that was making that oneg together. So I really am serious. Everyone who can get a bottle of wine should find one and resume, because I think cooking with wine, any night of the week, I love to cook, but I think when I put wine in my hand and I make myself a cute hors d'oeuvre, it makes cooking such a joy in the middle of the week. So if you're so please partake.
Right to me, please.
Well, Nick, I can chat from.
So today's latkes, I have My best recipes when I'm cooking, I always put them in a notebook. That way I can find them again, and I always cover them with this plastic. And this is like a notebook that I have going for a lot of years, and it makes finding like what to cook in a week so much easier. So I decided to call this part of my new part of my notebook Latke-esque, because it's a little like latkes, but it adds a little something extra. The first of the 3 types of latkes that we're going to make today, one of them is called a root vegetable latke, and I basically adapted and paraphrased the recipe. I'll share all these with you afterwards from the Gefilte Fish Manifesto. We had the chef come with arts and culture through, I don't remember if it was arts and culture or it was arts and culture, and was it 2 years ago now? But it was a really nice event, and he signed our lovely cookbook. So the one from his is called Root Vegetable Latkes, and it's on page 204 if you have it and you want to follow along. And I modified it because I actually don't like to cook with turnips. They're very hard to open. And maybe when I was younger and more muscular, I used to like cut them much easier, but I left that out. So I'm 5 potatoes, 1 parsnip, an onion, 4 scallions, 3 large eggs, and kosher salt. And there's ½ cup of breadcrumbs and some flour in this recipe. Now,
We are going to be sharing the recipes at the end, and also if anybody has any questions, they can put them through the chat so that we can talk to Sherry afterwards.
One more thing I would ask if everybody would mute themselves. That would be helpful.
Oh, also in the chat throughout the talk, I'm going to throw out a few questions for you about your cooking. And I just wanted you to write your answers in the chat, like write answer to and what your answer is. And I'm gonna do something with them in the follow-up email to consolidate some of our answers and share. And if you have a question for Beatrice throughout the talk, just write question 2 dots in your question so she can quickly find that and call on you. So that's the first thing we're making. The second thing we're going to make today is we're going to do corn fritters in Thai dipping sauce. We have our handy dandy frozen corn here. Very useful, very easy middle of the week dish. I always serve it with a side of sweet Thai dipping sauce. And it's great for Hanukkah because it's a little bit healthier, and who wants to eat the same latkes every night of the week? So, and then the third dish that we're going to make is adapted from the New Basics cookbook that I have here. You can see it's very well worn and falling apart. I've had it many years. It's by the same women, Rosso and Lukens, who did the silver palette. And that recipe, I basically switch out the regular latkes, the regular potatoes, for the sweet potatoes. And I changed the proportions because I find that their proportions really don't work with sweet potatoes. And that when you're making that recipe, you have to like get a feel for the recipe. You kind of like make the first batch and you can tell if the proportions are the way you want it. Because I find that all sweet potatoes, in terms of how long they've sat on the shelf in the supermarket, it really changes how much egg you might need to put in. So, and then I've researched some wines that we will be using today. And I hope to encourage you possibly to go out and get them at the Corkscrew recommended these. I looked up in Kosher by Design by Susie Fishbein. Some of you might know Stella Greenbaum. This is one of her in-laws. Wrote this Kosher by Design book, and she recommends with her Hanukkah meal, latkes. She had a couple of wines in there that she thought went particularly well with oil-based ingredients. And also, she recommended a fish dish as the main course. And I have to agree that a fish dish is a really great main course to go with latkes because the latkes can be a little heavy and the fish is very light. So I went ahead and pulled one of my most favorite fish dishes, And also, because I think that fish dish would go particularly well with the root vegetable latkes. And I pulled one of my concoction dishes to go with the fritter or sweet potato one. So the wines that Susie Fishbein had said would go particularly well was a Chianti and a Moscato. And I spoke with the staff and they recommended these two wines here. This one was they thought would bring out the best flavors. It's a Vittoria Zerbina by Serraggio. Can you see it if I hold it there? And that's for the main courses. And then for the dessert course, which I went ahead and made it one of the desserts, you'll see at the end. This is the Moscato d'Asti that she recommended. And there was a more pricey, wine that she recommended that when we go to the dessert course, I'll let you know about. So without further ado, some chopping, some frying. And while I get started with some of the onions and the eggs, I thought I'd ask my first question. I would like to know in the chat, who taught you to cook and some memory about that. And what was the first Jewish food you learned to cook? So as I start with this huge thing of onions here, why don't you get into the chat and write it out. If you don't know how to use the chat, I'm sure someone will help you. Onions. This is also an opportunity for you to get your wine. And if you have any questions, Beatrice will call on you.
So I'm going to send everyone in the meeting this question. Who taught you to cook? So Summer says that my mom taught me how to cook by essentially giving me her recipes. Is that what you want me to do, right, Sherry? You want me to?
That's fine.
Okay.
Or whatever people say, I'm going to aggregate what they said, the little researcher in me.
Okay.
And I will let people know, like, you know, this many people have this experience, that many, and this is that kind of thing.
Chicken soup by the mothers and the aunts. Bonnie, my aunts who used to own a restaurant, and first Jewish food was a mashed potato kugel. And Ellen was self-taught. Her mom was a terrible cook, she says. Ellen Priestak. Myra said that her mother with chicken soup. And Roberta said, my grandmother taught me to cook Sephardic pastries, especially borekas. Very yum. Holly says that she learned to make matzah brie with her grandmother.
So I know some people have some ways of making the onions not make you cry, but I never really found a way that works. So if anyone wants to chime in about that, I'd love to know, because onions do make me cry.
Ellie says that the internet taught her how to cook. And Judy, my grandmothers and mothers were very good cooks, but I think I took myself. And Sarah and Joseph Gans, my mom and many Jewish foods, matzah, French toast on Passover. Those were the foods that they learned.
Okay. See, this is the, you get to watch me cry on Zoom. Very nice.
Tibby says that my mother was the worst cook. Unfortunately, despite my interest, I'm pretty pathetic. Oh. Sorry to hear that, Tibby.
This is why I brought my Kleenex, so I could blow my nose after I cried for the onion. Okay, so going to take this out and separate it in a couple bowls so we can use it for 2 out of the 3 recipes. Bowl number 1, bowl number 2. And so in terms of the curry that I use for the sweet potato one, which I'm not going to make first, I'm going to make that one last. I was mentioning before we started the Zoom that I really use this particular curry, Madras curry powder by Sunbeam. I find it particularly good because it's a little mild and smoky, and people who don't even like curry like it. So if you're having a crowd, which none of us get to have this year, you're completely ready. All right, so now I'm going to get the oil. Put that down. I think it'll be too loud. I think we'll be right without it. So then I have to keep my oil next to the stove. This makes it very easy. It's all the recipes have the same direction to start with 1/8 of an inch of oil. So that makes life easy. Okay. And we're going to start the onions in one of that main dish that I was going to make with the turkey dish that I thought would go well with the potatoes. So here we go. Start the oil up on all the burners.
Sherry, what oil are you using?
I always use canola oil because it's very healthy. I mean, years ago, I think we were all using a different oil because that's what was on the market. But canola oil really does the best job. And because it's good for our hearts. And, you know, when I was a little girl, I think some of my relatives were afraid of oil. And it's actually super important for your brain. Not having oil makes people more stressed. You have to have a certain number, so much oil a day. So, you know, 1/8 of an oil is not going to hurt you. I think some people really like put the latkes in like 1 inch of oil, and I don't really feel that's useful at all. So, so that's that. So to begin, I'm going to steal a little bit of this to make the turkey dish that I thought would go well with the potato latkes. And I'm going to put this into 2 different bowls so that we have enough for the sweet potatoes. Now I'm cutting the number of how much I'm going to make down because we don't have a party going on today. But you know, in the real recipe, the real proportions would be there. So I'm going to cut the potatoes. Interesting that Max Nachman recipe uses the potatoes with the skin on, and for health reasons, I think that's awesome. So, and the other thing that really changes things is the nonstick nature of your pans. It's very important to have heavy duty pans and not use thin ones because then your potato latkes are going to burn. And even though I'm not making a ton of potato latkes today, I do think that, where did the disc go just now? That nonstick and putting them on a blotter afterwards to get rid of any extra oil that's not needed is always a good thing.
Sherry, was the heat on the stove, is it high heat or medium?
Well, until I'm ready to put in the actual thing, because you don't want to start a fire while you're cooking the rest of your food. It always kind of doesn't make you want to cook too much next time. So the low temperature I think is good. And then I might increase it to like medium.
Somebody wants to know what your opinion of baked latkes.
What my what?
Opinion of baked latkes. instead of,
I find them a little dry myself. You know, the kind that you get from the delicatessen that come frozen, I think like if you're having a huge party and you're not a cook, I think, you know, they do a very different recipe. Theirs is more pureed. And I think they lock those with pureed potato inside. It can be tasty for a large party. You know, kind of goes with catering fare. So there's a place and a time for certain types of things. So then the secret recipe, the secret part of these latkes is the parsnip. So I'm going to peel a handy dandy parsnip, which I only started using parsnips like 5 years ago. I really hadn't heard too much about them before. It's not part of my upbringing, but I know that my great grandmother-in-law from Argentina, she was from Germany and she used quite a bit of root vegetables. So, I mean, maybe it's been 10 years since I used it. I also feel like having a really good, comfortable peeler kind of makes this task a lot easier. So I'm actually going to throw half of this large parsnip into this potato latke because it's so big. A lot of parsnips are not this big. And that's also like something you have to keep in mind when you're looking at these recipes. They're meant to, you know, they say one parsnip, but you know, it could be double the volume that the recipe actually really needs. So you have to be a little careful with that.
Sherry, what food processor is that? Lisa is asking. It looks like it's very easy to use.
It is. It's a Cuisinart, and so half of this is going to be for the butternut squash soup that I'm going to show you how to whip up, and the other, yeah. So this is a Cuisinart. It doesn't really say the model. This is a newer one. Our Cuisinart died after many years, and so this replaced it. So I'm just gonna put it, not bother taking out the potato. I'm just going to put them all in together. I got you all excited. And what you can't see is that I have my helper here right underneath me, waiting for me to screw up so that she can get some stuff on the ground. But some of this wouldn't sit well with her, so I'm not gonna let her have it. So I'm very
Sherry, it looks like your wine bottle might be coming down to under there. Do you want to move it? Thank you, Judy.
Thank you. So here we go. Okay, and off. Okay. Okay, take away the big pieces that didn't do their bit. Okay. And now I'm going to add to the bowl of onions. Here we go. And this is the recipe that calls for breadcrumbs. Now that was a first for me. I've never used breadcrumbs in a latke recipe before. It actually held together super well. So I might experiment in the future with adding breadcrumbs to my sweet potato recipe, but I'm not going to experiment with that today. So now I got to check my egg count for this recipe. Okay, I did half the potatoes, so I'm going to do half the egg. So I'm going to use 1.5 eggs. And push this over here. And push this. I'm just going to use 2. I don't think it's going to hurt anything. All right, and now we have my fork. And I'm gonna switch this around after I dump this. When we designed this kitchen, I was very fortunate to get a garbage that is right here on my work surface. It really changed my whole cooking. So if you ever redesign your kitchen, having on an island your garbage is super nice. However, due to the pandemic, my garbage isn't working very well. We really need a workman to come into our house, but I don't want to have anyone in. So we're kind of just suffering with it not working. So now I'm going to pour this in and I'm going to start mixing. And I am going to add in the They had an extra step in the recipe, and I did do it the other day, where you put cloth over this bowl, and then you put the potatoes in the cloth, and you wait a couple minutes, and you get the water to start to go through, and then you squeeze the water out, and you keep a small amount of the water at the end. You throw away the top, but you keep the potato starch part at the bottom. But there was so little water that came through that for these particular potatoes, which are yellow potatoes, I didn't feel like it was a necessary step. Sometimes I feel like a lot of these cookbooks that they put a lot of different steps in because it makes them feel very scientific, where really, if you just put it all together in the bowl, as long as you squeeze them at the end, you're all good. And these were quite delicious when I double checked the recipe before making it for you today. So now I'm going to go for my breadcrumbs, which I see have moved from here. Let's see, where did they go? So they were here, breadcrumbs.
Oh, in the front, I think, Sherry, in your,
What's that?
look up to the right, up in the top,
To the right.
up to the right.
Here?
Yeah, is that it?
That's not right.
Oh,
Okay. I was probably over here from these things. Okay. No, not where they're supposed to be. So I will just add in from my stash over here. Okay, take them out of the bowl. Okay. Then I'm going to get my flour and see how much is required here. So this recipe would like, I believe that heaping tablespoons are fine. 2, 3. Right now, this is the part, like, you know, some people don't like to get their hands dirty. I understand. I do keep my gloves in this pull out underneath me. So, you know, it's fine to put on gloves to make them if that makes you happier. I personally don't feel like I need it. I washed my hands before I started. I kind of don't mind the feel. I'm gonna get my kosher salt and put a little bit on. I like to pepper mine at the end. So,
what kind of breadcrumbs did you use?
so you know, it's interesting. I usually, before the pandemic, always used an Italian brand by Progresso, the seasoned ones. But then during the pandemic, I took whatever I could get, and one of the container that I was actually searching out right here, that was here earlier, it was like a no-name brand that had nothing in it whatsoever, and it comes in a very nice pouch, and I actually like them better for this particular project than the ones that have that Italian kind of taste to it. So I highly recommend that brand, and I'll try to put it into the notes when I send along the stuff. So I'm going to go to the stove. Basically, I'm just going to go like this, and I'm going to squeeze out the water and squeeze it so that there's not so much in it. And then I'm going to just put them down. So I'll be right back. I think this would be a good time for another question now. So let me do that for a second before I do it. I'm also going to get started the soup on the stove while I turn my back. The soup is basically a little bit of onion sauteed in the bottom of one of these bowls. I'm going to add in this diced butternut squash, comes frozen. It's from, which place did you get this one from, honey? Baldor's. They're delivering to us during the pandemic. It's very useful. And an apple. And then I'm going to puree those together because sometimes for the soup, you really just want a little soup with the potato latke. You don't want a whole meal. So that was the lunch one that I prepared as a menu.
Do you have sometimes breadcrumbs with matzo meal instead of matzo meal, or one or the other?
Matzo meal, breadcrumbs myself. I use that on Passover, but I don't really use it on for Hanukkah. So here we go. I'm gonna make 3 or 4 of them and save. I also put this in the refrigerator once overnight And I was very impressed that it didn't brown. So you can make part of this in advance of a party. I don't know whether it was the parsnip that made it different, but it really did stay nicely overnight. So I was very impressed by that. So
I think you should stress
This
that
one.
They use a lot less oil.
yeah, so the 1/8 oil really is like key. Now I'm going to turn this one up since it's cooking. And I'm going to start this soup going in here. Take this out. This house came with this lovely stove. It was a broken down split when we arrived, and it came with a beautiful stove and a beautiful refrigerator. And we renovated and kept the stove and refrigerator and changed things around, but it's something I never would have bought myself, so I'm super happy that I have it. My nose is still running from those onions. Okay, so that's cooking, that's cooking. This turned up, and now I'm just gonna add in this onion for the soup here. I'm gonna let that saute. And I'm going to show you what I'm gonna do with this concoction I made that I think goes really well for a dinner with the sweet potato latkes. I'm gonna take a pound of turkey meat, and I'm going to mix it up like this, like so it becomes pieces, like kind of like it look of Hamburger Helper, those of you that remember the 70s. And first I'm sauteing an onion, then I'm putting into the mix this lovely 2 tablespoons of this red curry Thai paste. It's not very spicy, it's just really pungent. And then I also believe in keeping this in my refrigerator. You can add this to chicken soups, anything you saute. It's a lemongrass stir-in paste, and a tablespoon in many things, soups or sauteed onions, really does pick up the flavor. You don't have to use any sugar in your dishes or that much oil to make them taste good.
Is the turkey the 7% or the turkey breast?
This is 93% lean ground turkey. Delivered via like either Costco or Wegmans, one of the two.
Myra says that she usually uses safety glasses when cutting a lot of onions.
Safety glasses.
Safety glasses when cutting onions, so you don't.
You don't wear glasses. Do they go over glasses?
I guess, yeah.
No, I know. I asked them if they had. Some people tell me they put them in the freezer for a little bit, but I don't know. Okay, now I got my wood handle. Now, one thing I'm very careful about is when I'm using raw meat, is that after I use the handle in the raw meat and it's starting to cook, I always put it in the sink and start with a new one. So here we have the onion, and we have, say this, and I'm just gonna smush it around.
Where did you get the lemongrass paste?
What's that?
Where did you get the lemongrass paste?
Lemongrass McCaffrey's carries it. I imagine other places carry it also, but I don't know if the other stores carry it, but it's a pretty common ingredient. Mostly lemongrass. I never saw the real lemongrass for many years. I only saw it coming in this into my kitchen, but it basically looks like a big hard piece of scallion, and you chop it up and you cook it a long time to get it softened. So I have to say I would never have the patience for that. So very happy for my little handy dandy lemongrass. So my onions, my mother-in-law always started every soup, my belle Meyer, by saying saute an onion. Every soup I ever make is by steel. And I always use my Le Creuset because you want a really strong pot. So I'm going to turn up my turkey. It's not really going very fast. So turning it up to high. And now I'm going to add in this soup with the parsnip and the butternut squash. I put like a tablespoon or 2 of the same curry powder I use in the potato latkes because it kind of connects the 2 dishes. And the bright orange soup looks great being served next to light orange potato latke. So I have it already out, waiting to sprinkle in. You always want to use curry at the part of the meal, of the part of the cooking that has the sauteed oil hot. You never want to use curry in any dish when you haven't already made the oil hot, because the flavor of the curry will not absorb into the dish properly. So here you go.
Does McCaffrey carry that curry?
What's that?
Does McCaffrey's curry carry that curry?
I used to get it from Bon Appetit, but Bon Appetit started having less and less on their shelves. So I then asked him to give it to me in a little packet, and for a long while he did. And now I just go online, and I bought a ton of it when we did the stone soup project with Alexander Bar Cohen. They needed a lot. So I just bought a box, and then I've just been giving them out to friends as little gifts because, you know, we needed so much to do that project.
Cool. So a lot of people, so a few other people have ideas on what to do with the onions to make sure that you don't tear up. Somebody says that, Beverly says that she rinses onions in cold water before cutting them. And Lynn puts a piece of bread between her teeth and it sticks to out of the mouth and the onions don't bother her.
I never heard a piece of bread between your teeth while
I
you're,
guess that's what Lynn says.
could it be sourdough bread? Because that's all I have now, because that's all I make.
Any kind of bread, but it works.
I'm not seeing the small one. Okay. All right. So there are two types of flippers. This I use more for fish in my kitchen, and this I use more for my latkes. So I'm going to flip my latkes. Flip. After I flip them, I'll show them to you. And a tiny one over here. I always like to add a little tasting latke here.
I think we should
So,
check it.
Here's what they look like. Can you see? Okay.
That's cool.
They hold together really well. This recipe is excellent. And the parsnip really gives it quite a lovely taste. So this one, towards the end, I would definitely add a tiny bit more salt. I don't like to add much salt to my batters. I prefer to leave it at the edges at the end because I feel like that's where we taste it most anyway.
And again, how much oil did you put in the pan?
1/8 of an inch, hardly any. It's a good, this pan is a Cuisinart heavy duty nonstick pan. If you're gonna spend any money in your kitchen, you spend money on two things, good knives and heavy duty pans, because if you're using a bad pan, your cooking will not be as good. So this is very thick, and look at how nice a brown it gets.
More flavor.
And it's more flavor for the actual vegetable instead of tasting the oil. Sometimes I get out a pan that's thick, but it has a coating on it, and I find that certain ones don't get browned. So then I just, after 4 pancakes, I just switch to a different pan because often it's a problem with the pan itself. So those are now done. We've now completed one of the 4. I'm going to put it in the oven. I'm going to set the oven to 200, and it's going to remain in the oven until I'm ready to serve it. So let me get out. Let's see. Yeah. I'm going to put it in here. Take it off the stove. And this frees up the pan. 1, 2.
Also less dangerous, by the way. You have splattering oil all over the place.
Absolutely.
You can say that.
And then if the oil gets on the side of the pan, be sure to take it away because you don't want any flares. So a little bit of wipe at the edge, and it's ready to go for our next batch.
How hot is the pan? Are you medium high or high?
It was on a medium heat.
Medium heat.
Medium heat. In the beginning, I have them on low so that we see if I keep it on low, nothing bad's going to happen if I'm not using that pan yet. But if I'm making a lot of dishes at once, it certainly makes everything more ready for me to use at any given time. So all I have to do is turn it up. So I'm chopping up the meat now. It needs a little bit of a stir. My butternut squash is in here with the sauteed onions. I'm going to add the 2 tablespoons of the Thai sauce. It's like a paste, it's very thick. And I'm going to add 2 tablespoons into this one heavy tablespoon. Okay, that's about 2. It'll last for about 3 meals. So, you know, you don't have to be going out to a fancy Thai restaurant and spend $50 on the 2 dishes. You could just buy the little bottle that costs a lot less, and it lasts for three meals worth. And you know, I use this kind of red pepper curry paste in other dishes, like my chicken soup. I might saute an onion. I might slip into this the sauteed lemongrass into the onion before I add the chicken. And then I might add in a little of the curry paste. And after the chicken is cooked and I take the chicken out of the chicken soup, I might add in, I might just add a little lemongrass in with some coconut milk. No, the lemongrass in the beginning, the coconut milk. So now we have I'm gonna see what else is in my turkey dish. So my turkey dish, okay, so the last ingredient that I didn't put into my turkey dish is frozen peas. Whenever I cook a dish, I think what color would make this look good. And that's what I decide to concoct into it, because you want different colors to make things pop. So I'm gonna get out of the microwave my frozen peas that I already took the liberty of defrosting. I obviously don't need this many, but I'm gonna put in about a cup worth. And now I have this going here, and this is what this dish looks like. I'm gonna cook it a little longer. So this is what it looks like. I'm gonna put no chicken broth is my favorite chicken broth to use. I'm gonna fill it up about 1 inch, and I'm just gonna let it saute for about 15 minutes. So that's what I would serve with the curry potato latkes. The no chicken broth. This is my favorite. It works for kosher people. It tastes really like chicken broth to me, so I very much like it. And if my hand wasn't slippery, I'd be able to open it. There it goes. Okay, I'm gonna pour in, it's about 1/2 cup of broth, and I'm gonna put a lid on it so that it simmers. And now that I have this chicken broth out, this is the exact same thing that I'm gonna use in my soup. Like my mother-in-law, when she taught me to make potage soup, which is a fancy name in French for like pureeing things, Annie Meyer, she taught me to just let the vegetable peek out of the soup. So here we have the sauteed onion and the curry and the butternut squash that was from frozen. And then I take my no chicken broth, and I don't have to measure, it slows you down. You can always add a little more at the end. You see how it's peeking out of the broth? You know it's gonna be perfect every time. So I'm gonna turn that on. I'm gonna put that on medium. And the only thing missing from that dish now is the apple. Now, if I was working with myself at home and wasn't talking to you guys, not 10 million people, but many people, I would put this in a little earlier, but it really doesn't matter. I mean, if you forget something in a soup, just add it later and it sits in the liquid, it gets soft. By the time you put it in the soup, by the time you puree it, it's not going to be a problem. Now, I used to puree my soups with, I used to puree them so that they would work with one of those immersion blenders. However, the newer brand that I bought to replace the one that wasn't working anymore, that one, it really didn't do as good job. I felt like there were tiny pieces instead of really quite pureed. So I started using my blender instead, and it's not as convenient, but since the product was inferior, it's very important to get that smoothness. And if I'm not getting it, I'm going to go to change the appliance I use.
What kind of apple are you using?
So this is as long as it's this one is from Terhune Orchards, and we're not doing our own shopping right now. Everything since March 12th that we have in our kitchen is via shoppers who bring it to our front porch or curbside pickup. So I'm just going to take the handful of apples and I'm going to throw it in the butternut squash soup, and I'm going to make sure that it hits the bottom and gets covered by the broth so that they cook. And now I'm going to switch utensils. Now that my broth is cooked, I'm going to turn this down. It looks almost done. And I'm just going to turn that low. And this one I'm going to turn on low. So now we have the hot oil. I'm going to turn on the one that we turned off before. Keep it low, low. And I'm going to make the corn fritters. Clear off what we have here and get rid of this. So corn fritters. So I need to take my handy dandy bag of 1 pound of the corn, and by sitting out for the last 20 minutes, it's gotten partially defrosted, but I'm just gonna pop it in the microwave for a minute on defrost and let it cook a little further. It doesn't really matter that there's a little egg in the bottom of this bowl. That's the beauty of cooking a lot of dishes at the same time, because there's gonna be egg in the final dish anyway. I don't need to dirty another dish. So I'm gonna stick that in the microwave. Defrost. And so the soup is gone. We have this now. Okay, so get rid of this dirty one. I'm gonna take a second to clean my surfaces. And what we're gonna need is a little bit more onion now. So just back on. There we go. Take this off. So this is a good time for me to ask you another question that I would like in the chat. Okay. What is your favorite dish to cook for Jewish events? And do you make anything unusual for Hanukkah? Those are my 2 questions. So go ahead and type in the chat while I make myself cry again. Wait, I'm gonna try what you just said about the bread in my mouth. So that would be very funny. Here's my beautiful sourdough bread from my last batch. We made 3 batches this week, and it looks very nice inside. So let's see, I need my bread knife. And I feel, as a toast to Julia Child, I need a little bit of wine. All right. Let's see if it works. Do I still cry? Okay, like this? It looks so silly, Lynn. Okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I think I should have my wine first. Okay.
So Summer makes noodle pudding for a Jewish event and nothing unusual for Hanukkah. So let's see who else responds. Oh, Myra. Lynn says an applesauce for Hanukkah. She makes applesauce. Beverly makes chicken soup for all events.
It's good. Good job. Wow, I think I'll cut another one. Okay.
Roberta says that my mother and grandmother always made buñuelos. Ah, a Sephardic donut. I think that's what you meant, buñuelos. Buñuelos.
It is a success. I really enjoyed that. Thank you so much. I'm happy to have led the Zoom even just for this. Thank you so much. That was great. All right, let's get them out of here quickly so I don't start crying now that I took it out of my mouth. Wow, that's a great tip. Who knew? Who knew? Okay. All right. Something doesn't seem on right. Let's try to do this again.
Ellen says Latke Fest, several varieties of latkes. Favorite everything bagel latkes with smoked salmon. Everything bagel latkes with smoked salmon. Timis for Rosh Hashanah, that's Sarah and Joseph Gans.
Okay, done.
And from Sandy, are these like sufganiyot made in Israel? Oh, the buñuelos, right? Bonnie says that my family enjoys my bagels. Dishes would be chicken and plums or Georgian chicken with pomegranate sauce for Rosh Hashanah. Hanukkah, just latke variations such as zucchini or sweet potato.
Okay. Need my spatula. Push this out. So now the sweet potato that we're gonna break this onion between the two dishes. The sweet potato dish, I'm gonna use the skins. So let me get rid of those in here. I'll take half of this for this. Okay. And I'm gonna get rid of some of that water. See the onions left water in the bottom. I'm gonna drain that. Okay. And so, all right. So the sweet potatoes now I'm going to, where did it go? Here it is, here. And the bowl that I just popped over. Okay. Okay, where did it go? The bowl, here, I popped it up here. Okay. So I'm gonna put this here, put this back on. And again, I'm cutting to the portions of everything because we don't have a big party going on. And I washed these before I started, and they're quite large. The other thing is a lot of recipes call for 3 sweet potatoes or 5, but you really have to look and see the measurement because it's so vastly different than what, you know, every sweet potato is so different. So the other night, you know, I needed 32 ounces to do the sample, and 3 was sufficient.
Holly says that her most recent success was roasted chicken with clementines, fennel, and arak from the Jerusalem cookbook.
Ooh, that's a good hint. I have that cookbook, but I haven't made everything in it yet. In the New York Times for Rosh Hashanah, they had a lovely plum chicken 2 or 3 years ago. It was just phenomenal, and I highly recommend that plum chicken. If they reprint it again at holiday time, it's an amazing recipe. Dinny or honey and plum. Normally I would take this and put it in the mix, but I don't feel like it's necessary today. All right, so we got this going. We have, and again, they added an extra step of letting this sit for 15 minutes and then draining the water. But when I made that the other night, there was no water to be had. And I don't know whether during COVID, they're letting the sweet potatoes sit longer. I also found that when I was running my directions that I need to use more eggs than the actual recipe called for. So I don't know whether, again, during COVID, they're sitting longer in the supermarket or something. So, all right, and it goes with the onion. Mix that together. Okay. And now we gotta look back at our recipe, check our soup. Soup looks great. I'm gonna turn it down, turn it off. It looks good. When you have the butternut squash frozen and defrosted, it like cooks up really fast. So let's see. This is the, okay, so we have the eggs. We need an egg, and we need a 1/4 cup of flour based on the amount that I cut the recipe by. Okay. Flour. So I need 4 tablespoons. I can do keep in ones. 1, 2, 3. And like I said last night that I thought I needed a little extra egg, I'm gonna add 1 more egg into this mix just because that was the right thing for these particular sweet potatoes. And then we need the kosher salt. Wash my hands. Kosher salt. A little extra pinch. All right, now we're going to, so when I mix these and I shape them, after I put them in the into the oil, 1/8 thick, I am going to, I guess I have to keep, the onions are starting to affect me a little bit. I don't want to keep bread in my mouth the whole time. I am going to put a little bit of the curry on both sides of the latke. Okay. It's all good. And does this recipe, oh, we need the baking powder. And that is a teaspoon.
You didn't have that for the other one, right?
No, I mean, I didn't feel it was necessary. I think some of them call for 1/4. Let me see, should I put it in? Let's see what they want. Nope, the other one doesn't seem not to have it. All right. No, and the other one there isn't any. So they're all quite distinct. Okay, so I have everything I need in this one except for this. And my teaspoons are here and my flour waiting for me whenever I need them. So here we go. We've been keeping the starter for our sourdough going since my son Nicholas, who was on this call, I don't know if he's still here. We've been keeping it going for quite some time since the beginning of COVID. Every night we add some stuff to the starter, we leave it out in our kitchen. It's like a little ritual.
You're doing great, Sherry. Everybody's enjoying it. The cooking and talking and sharing with us in your beautiful kitchen.
Very fortunate to renovate it. Okay, so this is ready and this is ready. The back one, I'm going to start first. I'm going to squeeze out the extra liquid, pop it in. Okay. Okay. So now we're going to just do the corn fritter. And basically the corn fritter, I can see that our time is running short. So basically with the corn fritters, what you do is, I had an extra one out here that I leave it on the side. The corn fritter, I made an extra one that's already ready in advance so that we could have it pop it in water. And right here. So I see our time is running short. So you take the corn and you chop in a half a jalapeno. And if you would like, you can take some spinach leaves and pop them into there too. And the other ingredients for the corn are half a cup of water of the flour with the frozen corn, 2 eggs, 1 jalapeno, and 3 scallions. And you don't have to cook anything in advance, but you mix it all together. And then you form the patties in the same exact way. So 1, 2, and 3. So here we go. Put this all together. And we're going to put the handy dandy curry on top of the sweet potato.
You also didn't peel the sweet potatoes, right?
No, you can't even see. It's funny, I thought for sure you would see the brown skins or the orange skins, but the actual mix, when you look at what comes out in the Cuisinart, you barely see any of it. And it is the healthy part of it. It has a lot of vitamins. So it's a really nice thing that we're not using that part. So we've made our one main course, a soup, and 3 different types of latkes. And I'm going to flip them over. And then these that have been warming in our oven. Gerard, your part is coming. Gerard's going to help us at the end. So please come and do the little thing I asked you to do. All right. And the dessert that I made that I'm not going to cook today for you, but I'm going to send along is a cream cheese orange bundt that I really enjoy making throughout the year. But this year, today for you, I made it inside a Jewish Star bundt can that I've never used before, that I've had in my basement pre-COVID. So I'm very happy to use it for the first time. And then I frosted it in a cream cheese frosting that has a little bit of coconut that I happen to have in my pantry waiting for some use on top. And then to give it back its Jewish star shape, because when you frost it, it kind of loses the Jewish star shape. I put some little chocolate chips on the edges just to give it the look of a Jewish star. So we will end this in the style of Julia Child. And I'm going to take the soup. Okay, put it down there. Thanks. So I'm going to show you what the soup looks like, because I did magic to it. It's already pureed. And I'm going to ladle it in to here, soup bowl. And I'm going to add a little bit of parsley to the top of it. Give it a little rinse. And this is what the soup looks like. I'm going to come closer so you can see it when you serve it. Okay. And I'm going to flip what's left on the stove here. Okay, this one needs to be longer. 1,
Show them what that looks
2, 3. So you can see what this looks like. I'm bringing it closer. I use this as a lunch during the middle of the week. All of this is it's not very caloric when you only use an eighth cup of oil. And then the main dish that I prepared here, this is what it looks like. I never serve my dishes on the table in the pots. I always put them in some pretty plate that like reflects the opposite color of the dish. So this one is the dish I think that would go best with the sweet potato latkes. The fish dish that I'm going to send to you is from Pierre Frenet's Low Calorie Gourmet. I find it tastes good even 3 days later. So if you make extra, just warm it up for dinner the other night. The sauce it's in is fabulous, and it has a tiny bit of ginger in it. So I feel like it goes well with the parsnip latkes. So one night I think parsnip latkes with fish. Another night I think the turkey and pea with the sweet potato latkes, and or the corn fritters. And I think the sweet potato latke or the corn fritter goes really well with soup at lunch any day of the week.
Less oil and a good pot makes it more flavorful.
Yeah, less oil and a good pot definitely does make it more flavorful. Gerard wants me to let you know that.
And healthy.
He's a good helper. So now what I'm going to do, that things have cooked and magically they're ready, we're going to head into my living room. Gerard, I need you. Can you go sit in your place, please? Thank you. And I'm just going to show you my helper here who has been with me the whole time. There you go. Hi, Luna. Hi. Nothing fell down. She's very sad. And I'm going to set this up here. Go sit there, right there. And just like Julia Child, it's magically all here. We have our corn fritters. We have our main dish. We have the 3 different types of latkes we made today. And we have the cake with the coconut and a wine. And I just need to get this apron off of me. And here we are. There's the special cake. And wait, Gerard,
Yes.
thank you for coming with your cookbooks.
Everybody's saying how beautiful and how amazing you are, how calm you have been in all of this fantastic presentation, Sherry. So.
Well, thank you for inspiring me. I definitely feel like Hanukkah is here because I got my Hanukkah tablecloth out a little earlier.
Oh, wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Beatrice, too, for the great job that you did. And now I'm hungry.
We're all hungry. Everything looked delicious.
Happy
And
Hanukkah,
you know,
everyone.
having a virtual meal with no calories.
That's right.
You're fast.
Yes, I get my concocting from my dad. He definitely liked to come home when I was in elementary school and concoct. So definitely the pea dish is an ode to him.
And just to remind everybody, you will be sending the recipes.
Yeah.
And just don't forget to also to print out the chat so you can see all the comments. Most of them I did pull them out, but maybe a couple here and there are more personal. So I think you'll be happy to have that.
Until I can go over to it. When people leave the room, I'll go over and I'll make a copy and paste.
Thank you very much. This was
Thank
awesome.
you.
Happy Hanukkah, everybody.
Happy Hanukkah,
Thank you.
everyone.
Happy Hanukkah.
Thank you so
Happy
much.
Hanukkah.
Thank you.
Thanks,
you.
Sherry.
And
That
you
was
all.
wonderful. Happy Hanukkah.
Thank you, Sherry. That was inspiring. So many
Yes.
dishes
Really
put
good.
together in one little stint.
Yep.
Recipes before Thursday if you can.
Oh, sure. I'll send them
Oh,
Monday.
yeah.
I'll send it on Monday.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone who
Good night,
came.
everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Ciao.
Leave, so I can leave at the bottom, leave, and then leave.
Yeah, I know.
Sherry, I'm staying on so you can print out whatever you need to.
Hak
Thank you so
Sameach.
much. Thank you, Beatrice, so much. Really great job.
Thank you so much, B. And thank you, Lynn. I really appreciate it. let's see, I'm gonna go into here at the bottom and then I'm gonna go scroll all the way to the top, Control C. And then I'm gonna dump it in a Word doc, new doc, Control V. Didn't do it. Wait a second. Don't do anything yet. Control V. Didn't work.
Hold
Try-
on, I'm trying it myself here. I'll try to see if I can send it to you.
Oh, no, I didn't do it. Just gave me the last